Hi, and welcome to the Healthcare CEO Show, where you'll find actionable insights on healthcare leadership from the best and brightest in the industry. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez. Let's get a pulse. Welcome to the Healthcare CEO Show. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez. This season, we're exploring the intersection of healthcare and M&A, hearing from executives who are steering their organizations through growth and change. Today, we're thrilled to have Dr. Jose Martinez, President and Managing Partner of Austin Retina Associates, as our guest. Dr. Martinez, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here, Daniel.
Now, let's talk a little bit about leading through change. Now, you've had an impressive career as a top-rated ophthalmologist, and now you're president of Austin Retina Institute. You also are actively involved in the community. So how has your background in patient care and community service helped to shape your approach to leading an organization?
You know, I've been in Austin 31 years, and certainly a part of our practice at Austin Retina, one thing we take great pride in terms of service to the community, is we accept anybody that comes into our doors. We're going to take care of them, and we don't screen. There's a lot of, there's no public health system, at least from an ophthalmology standpoint, in Austin. Consequently, whenever someone had retina problems, they really either don't get seen, get taken care of, or they come to our office and we take care of them. So we work in conjunction with the local public health system called Central Health here in Austin. And so we've been providing care for these patients that typically are underinsured or don't have insurance, really for the last 20, 25 years since that taxing district has been available. So the larger point I'm making is, we're really oriented. Part of our vision statement is unparalleled patient-employee satisfaction. Our mission statement is delivering excellence in retina care while treating everyone with respect and dignity. And we really take that to heart, and we really believe in that mission. And that means everyone in our community that we see that has a retina problem, we're willing to take them in and take care of them. So it's something that we do. We also have other things we do outside of the office itself. Some of us travel, and I've gone to missions outside of the U.S., one in the Yucatan of Mexico, as well as Panama, which are great experiences. But what I did find in those experiences is that often you don't have the equipment necessary. As a trained retina surgeon, I would get frustrated, at least in Panama, because I really didn't have the equipment necessary to maximize my skills to help people there. Still a great experience, was happy to be there. But thankfully, my time in the Yucatan in Mexico, we did have vitrectomy units that allowed us to really help people suffering from diabetes, which was a fascinating experience. Talking to a bunch of patients that spoke Mayan, which was a thing. Needing to have a Spanish interpreter to Mayan was something I didn't fully anticipate. But these small towns are really filled with Mayan ancestors, people that come from the Mayan culture, and so they speak Mayan.
That's amazing. And I've heard that you introduced some of your missions and visions statements into your meetings. Is that correct?
Yeah, we really try to emphasize, we're all about culture. I've really bought into this idea that culture is really, the ecosystem that we swim in at work. And if you're emphasizing your mission, core values, what our greater purpose is, we really try to integrate that in all our communications and meetings. We just rolled out a new initiative called Fundamentals, based on Daniel Friedman's book called Culture by Design, which I would have to say parenthetically is probably one of my favorite pragmatic books when it comes to leadership and leading an organization and trying to integrate a great, healthy culture. And in that book, he emphasizes how to do that. He gives you a pragmatic approach. And we literally, this week is our first week to introduce our first fundamental at Austin Retina, which is build a community. And so we really emphasize to our staff that it's all about making connections with one another, with our patients, that building communities, one of the essential ingredients for great teamwork, and people that feel connected tend to work better together. We call it chemistry. Those great championship teams that we see, there's always great chemistry among the players. And we're really trying to recreate that in our workplace. That build a community is our first fundamental. So this is a new initiative we have. We actually have 26 fundamentals. We'll roll out one a week for the next 6 months, which really sounds like a lot, but the reality is it gives fresh fodder, fresh things to talk about every week in our weekly huddles in which we meet with our staff. And so we have this communication ritual that runs throughout our organization where we're meeting with our team, if you will. It can be anywhere from 6 to 12 people typically. And those teams meet to try to really get deep traction of these fundamentals and really try to make our culture our top priority.
You feel like these initiatives will help to impact your team's engagement and maybe drive better patient outcomes long term?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, healthcare, I always tell my staff, is the ultimate team sport. And the point being that really to deliver great healthcare, the physician is just one cog in the wheel. An important cog, I'll say, but really the physician is only as good as the team around them. And we really try to emphasize with our staff that they are part of the team, especially in clinic. We have a group of usually about 8 technicians or medical assistants, as some people call them, in our clinic, helping us work up patients, interact with patients. So, I mean, teamwork is so important, and it does increase engagement as we, develop this culture. And that's just part of the culture is how does our teamwork augment patient experience and the care we deliver our patients. It's always about the patients, our end goal. And anyway, so we're real proud of the culture we set up. And it's not a day goes by not in clinic where a patient does spontaneously say, hey, I've been to a lot of healthcare facilities. This is the best run facility I've ever seen. The staff is friendly. You guys are efficient. It's really quite a thing. So that really brings great joy to my heart to hear, because that's really what we try to accomplish. We want them to have unparalleled satisfaction.
Now, in terms of teamwork, you're now part of a large organization called Retina Consultants of America. So let's talk a little bit about what prompted that decision to partner with Retina Consultants of America, and how that partnership is helping to shape how you maybe deliver care.
Yeah, so we being a relatively large retina practice in Austin, Texas, had been approached multiple times, as most, a lot of healthcare facilities or practices have been approached by different private equity-backed initiatives to try to consolidate, specialty care or whatever type of care. So we talked to several groups about it, that a possibility, but most of them we just found that they just didn't align with us philosophically. First and foremost, they just had a different idea that they'd come in and just buy our practice and we'd be employed physicians and presumably everything would work out just great. Well, we all, as owners in our practice, understand the difference between owning something and being employed, and we really felt like those were not good fits until Retina Consultants of America showed up. And it's a horizontally integrated retina initiative, meaning it's just retina practices. Consequently, every physician in the group is, there's nothing lost in translation. We all understand what we're all trying to do in terms of taking great care of patients. How do you run an efficient office? So really, everyone's trying to accomplish the same thing. So when you share best practices, we're all speaking the same language. So that was really something that we thought would be something to look into more, just the advantages of that. And we also learned just from talking to this particular group, Retina Consultants of America, that they were all about autonomy, or making sure the local practices remained in control of their daily operations, that they had no interest in micromanaging that or thinking that they, far removed from our office, would have better ideas than us. In our own office, we call that principle of subsidiarity, the idea that you keep problems, you keep the solutions to the problems as close to the problem. So those that are coming up with solutions to a problem need to be close to that problem to fully understand all the details and nuance. And we felt that Retina Consultants of America had that same philosophy, that they weren't interested in telling Austin Retina how to best run our practice. Obviously, they can help facilitate sharing of ideas with other practices. They can certainly provide capital in order to expand. I mean, there's a lot of benefits, which I'm sure we'll get to. But the Retina Consultants of America, we just felt like philosophically, this idea of subsidiarity, leave as much control locally as possible, and really trying to facilitate, try to aggregate these practices to expand research, that there are certain functions that they could assist in expanding. And so we thought that sounds like a unique situation. We learned very quickly that not all PE initiatives are alike. It's kind of like every business has a difference. Same thing, sometimes people speak of PE-backed initiatives as some great evil, and they're all the same, but it's really not at all. And certainly in this RCA proposal, the idea that we would maintain equity in the new company was highly appealing, because that would keep us totally engaged, keep the physicians engaged in seeing the success of this conglomerate, of this aggregation of practices.
Yeah, now as part of that autonomy, you were actually able to keep your name, which is not necessarily always the case when it comes to these situations. So you feel like you also had some brand equity there in place as well?
Yeah, we'd like to think, our Austin Retina brand is valuable in our community. As people say, healthcare is local. And so having been in Austin for probably 40 years, if my memory serves me well, I think it was founded in 1984. So there's a certain level of brand equity that just change our names would not be wise. Ironically, it happens to be that our competitors have the same initials essentially as RCA, Retina Consultants of America. So we thought they'd inject a lot of confusion in the marketplace. So they totally understood. This is part of that whole principle of subsidiarity. They said, you know what? You guys know your market better than we do. If Austin Retina works better for you guys, we're not touching it because we don't want to screw things up. You guys have been so successful. The last thing we want to do is come in and impose changes on you that turn out to be terrible ideas.
That makes sense. Now, as you're looking to expand through, both de novo clinics and acquisitions, what are some of those key factors you're considering, when deciding between the two to grow?
Yeah, so organic growth, we always think is probably the simplest and easiest thing to do in terms of just growing our current base and our current locations. However, we live in an area, Central Texas is one of the booming parts of the country. A lot of people are moving here. Consequently, the city's really expanded geographically. So it's really become very congested. So we're realizing that our central office that was our main hub, it's really impractical for a lot of people to get there. I just talked to a patient today. It took him 2 hours to get to his appointment in our main office. And so we're always looking to, expand with satellites out in those communities so those patients don't need to make that trek. And they're underserved areas because the Central Texas region is expanding so rapidly. So we're constantly looking to see where's a place we can put new offices. Ironically, our main office has become so busy that we're having a parking problem. Imagine that. So that's become an issue that's kind of frustrated patients. So now we're thinking, golly, do we, open another central office? So we're trying to kind of walk through how to best do that. And the nice thing with our relationship with RCA is the capital expenditure required to do those things. They are, happy to fund that because they know it's an investment that will pay dividends down the road. So that's been one of the nice things about that relationship as well, is just the accessibility to capital to expand. If we need to build a new clinic, if we need to upgrade old clinics, if we need to buy, new modern equipment. So that's been a real benefit to our relationship with
Has having access to that capital has it changed anything about your decision-making or long-term strategic thinking about things when you're expanding, like, short-term versus long-term goals now that you have access to capital?
It has definitely changed. We're much more aggressive in what we're doing because we have access to capital. Is being essentially guaranteed by a much larger corporation, and we're not having to sign personal guarantees, which is, really nice. They're not being stupid about it. They're making sure that we, show them a budget and give them rationale for doing it. So in many ways, they've instilled some discipline in our budgetary process. We never had a budget per se annually, but that's something that they've instilled. This is one of the benefits that they've really imposed, kind of more regimented business-like practices that in the end is actually going to help us be more responsible with our expenditures, have to justify what we're doing. But if it makes sense, they're happy to loan the money. That's been incredibly helpful. One of the funny stories is, we had these we do satellites. So often our staff will take a Suburban. We own like 5 Suburbans, and those cars are getting old. They had like 150,000 miles on them, and you could tell they probably needed to be replaced. And before the RCA deal, the doctors are trying to figure out, God, do we really want to go take out another loan and buy these cars? Sure enough, we did the RCA deal. Within 6 months, we had 6 brand new, massive SUVs. And it was just funny to see the staff go, wow, the doctors must be doing pretty well because suddenly we have all this new stuff, which wasn't the exact reason why they're getting the new stuff. But anyway, it was just cute to see that they were starting to realize, man, this is getting to be a nicer and nicer place to work. So
yeah, and perception is reality. Let's be honest.
Capital is an amazing thing. you can really do a lot of great things with it. So, and ultimately the patients have commented over and over again about how comfortable they are in the offices and how nice they look. And it really makes a difference when you work in a nicely detailed environment. It just elevates everyone's mood. It's not so depressing. And so we've really enjoyed that benefit as well.
Now, there's always, both pros and cons, or maybe challenges and advantages. What are some of the challenges and advantages of working with a larger organization?
Yeah, so whenever these organizations aggregate, if you will, they try to aggregate certain administrative software, and whether it be the accounting software, perhaps the personnel software, the HR software, payment software. So those are three big items that we did have to make adjustments. We had to get on the preferred practice management system or preferred HR system. So that was a burden, but fortunately for the doctors, we're insulated from those types of changes. It sounds selfish, but, our staff took it in stride. They understood the benefits. We explained to them what the upside was with this relationship, and they've been able to appreciate those benefits because they've been able to share best practices with these 30 other practices that are part of this conglomerate. So our RCM manager is talking to the other RCM managers. And because, again, we're all doing retina, we're all confronting the exact same challenges, they really have beneficial conversations. So they understand the upside, and they understand that part of that is, so that when you're talking to them, we're talking apples and apples because we're on the same, whether it be HR system or the same paycheck system or whatever it is. So the downside is that it does require some administrative burden, has been our experience. But I think if you ask our staff, they would all say it's been worth it because of the upside.
In periods of growth, you're always trying to balance managing things internally with internal resources versus pulling in some external resources. Are there any external resources that have been beneficial to you as you've grown, or maybe now have gained access to?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I could list to start our research footprint. So we've been doing clinical research for several decades, and we've had a reasonable clinical research footprint, but that's expanded threefold in the last 2 years just from having this relationship with Retina Consultants of America for a variety of reasons. The main being that some practices that had joined before us were really some of the big research practices. So we've been able to essentially import their expertise into our own practice. They had more skill and experience negotiating contracts for clinical research, so we were able to tap into that expertise. Just the volume, the number of studies we've been able to access because of the relationship, again, has really tripled the size of our research department. And patients have loved that because it gives them access to, future medicines, presumably, through these clinical trials. And so it's really become one of the distinguishing marks of our organization that we're providing clinical research to our patients. So that's been a direct result of our relationship with Retina Consultants of America. Other things, patient access to medications. We're now able to negotiate with pharmaceuticals and GPO organizations to get better pricing on drugs and better access, and that benefits patients about what they have a broad spectrum of different drugs we can use on them, depending on their insurance, depending on what their disease is, and all the things that can influence those decisions. And that's when you aggregate 30 practices, they suddenly have more negotiating power than one practice. And also, not only aggregate do we have that power, but we have the people in place that serve at our central office that have the experience of really understanding how do you negotiate pricing for drugs. On top of that, we've been able to augment our contract negotiators with insurance companies, and they brought in the expertise to do that and kind of walked us through how to do that in a way that doesn't disrupt the practice. So those are kind of three just kind of basic things that have definitely augmented our functioning and our capacity to continue to grow and really grow different aspects of our business that provide opportunities for patients.
As we look to the future, are there certain maybe market trends, both locally and nationally, that you're observing that could impact your growth trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest trend that one sees is that Medicare's paying doctors less and less. That's a big trend. And this has been going on for ever since I started practicing. And as the managing partner of an organization for the last 20 years, I've been seeing every year it becomes harder and harder, one, to keep, keeping up with the pace of salary increases for our staff. I mean, everything's biting at the ability to continue to keep our doors open. So I saw this relationship with RCA as an opportunity to kind of push back in some ways, to have some power to try to offset that contraction of resources available. And so the big trend is, just this year, 3% cut in Medicare rates. So if you're a physician, you're making 3% less than you were last year. And that's, inflation's going. I mean, anyway, so it just becomes more and more difficult. So that's in terms of reimbursement trends. As far as other trends, we think that we happen to be in a field that has tremendous potential for research. A lot of medical breakthroughs, curiously, come from the ophthalmology space, in large part that the eye is so accessible. We can inject drugs directly into the eye and see their impact, and we can visualize and take images. And so it's a really interesting space to be in. We use a lot of biologics, which of course is a big new area of medicine. We also are looking at, hopefully we'll get approved next week, some cell-based therapies, looking at, cells implanted in your eye produce a particular growth factor that helps prevent worsening of a particular disease. But I mean, cell-based therapy is pretty cutting-edge stuff. Gene therapy, we're doing clinical trials using gene therapy. So these are, cutting-edge stuff we see in medicine in general. So to be a part of that as a retina specialist is really exciting. So the big trend is, the pipeline for research is huge, and that's just something that's going to continue to grow. And we're going to be able to cure, we're saving sight is the bottom line. We're really able to cure diseases. The next big frontier is inherited retinal degenerations, which are genetically caused diseases that we're hoping through gene therapy, whether it be CRISPR, Cas9 therapy, whatever it is, but all that's being developed. I mean, how are we going to replace genes in the eye with what they're missing in order to prevent disease from worsening? So, it's a very bright future.
Yeah. Looking ahead, what role do you think technology will play, in the practice as it scales up?
Yeah, I think it's going to expand quite dramatically, especially everything from just big data. We're starting, as part of our organization, we're aggregating our own big data. And so that'll give, we all have seen how the introduction of machine learning into any big data space really does accelerate the pace of understanding what's being seen. So I think the pace of research will only accelerate. So I think that's technology making a huge difference. And then there's probably more pragmatic technology. There's something called artificial sight, where they're putting chips in the back of the eye for people that can't see anything, so that at least they have some rudimentary vision. Well, that's only going to continue to increase. So the visual space, fortunately for us in vision, is 30% of our brain is devoted to vision, right? So there's a lot of research, a lot of dollars, a lot of excitement about keeping people seeing, because it's such a treasured sense. Which works in our favor as we're trying to combat blinding diseases.
That's amazing. I feel like if we don't have our ophthalmologists looking ahead, then we're all in trouble.
Yes. And looking's the operative word there. Looking ahead.
That's exactly right. Two final questions. There's a saying that leaders are readers. Do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to the person listening to this podcast today?
Listen, I already mentioned one, Daniel Friedman's Culture by Design. If you really want to make a difference in your organization, I think that's one you should look into, because it's super pragmatic and it really kind of gets you to understand how do you affect the behavior of your employees to make them buy into what you're trying to do in a way that makes sense, at least in my own mind. I thought that was a great book. There's another book that I thought was fascinating, Extreme Ownership. is a book by Babo Willink, and that really had an impact on me about if you're a leader, there's really no excuses. You either hire the right people and put them in the right place in your organization to make sure you succeed. And if those people aren't in the right place or they're the wrong people, the only person to blame is yourself. So really taking on the fact the whole, the organization is yours, and it either dies or lives or, flourishes based on your leadership, and to really kind of embrace that reality makes you jump in with both feet, and you're all in, and you're doing everything you can to make sure it succeeds. So that would be the other book.
Those are two excellent recommendations.
Yeah.
Final question this is essentially a show for leaders by leaders. What advice would you give to the person listening on the other end that may be in a similar position to you? Whether it be, entering into a new M&A type relationship, post-merger, or not even having considered it, but just kind of dealing with the everyday challenges that come with healthcare.
Yeah, one of our big core values at Austin Retina is practicing humility. Okay, and I think that's probably the least appreciated virtue in the fact that if you practice humility, you know your limits. You know when you don't know the answer to something, and you're willing to ask someone else for advice or for information, or hey, I need you to help me with this because I don't know what I'm doing here. So I think practicing humility is the greatest virtue. It's the most attractive virtue, right? We love to be around people that are humble. We hate to be around people that are arrogant. And I think if one practices humility, it'll actually open a lot of doors for you. And even when it comes to looking at a PE-backed thing, you're not going to know the answers. You're really going to depend on whether it be lawyers, accountants, lenders, whatever it is, for their advice and understanding. And it allows you to work together with a group of people. We all know that collective decision-making is more effective than independent decision-making because you're able to tap into the expertise of more people. So that would be my parting word to everybody and everyone is practice humility, and your life will only be enhanced.
Wonderful words of wisdom from Dr. Martinez with Austin Retina Associates. I want to thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on the Healthcare CEO Show. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more insights from the top. Until next time, lead boldly and care deeply. See you on the next episode.